They discovered her sleeping peacefully beside the carcass of an apex predator, a creature so formidable that dozens of species once mobilized entire fleets at the mere mention of its presence. Now, the entire galaxy was scrambling to claim ownership of this ordinary girl who just wanted to go camping. She was found on the third moon of Kepler 442c, a planet located in Sector 847 Zeta, commonly known as the Forbidden Sector. No survey teams dared venture there due to the high concentration of life forms classified between ACS 8 and 10, the most dangerous category in the Apex classification system that the galactic hegemony had meticulously developed over 1,000 years of peaceful but paranoid existence. The survey ship Prudent Inquiry, a Tethkari vessel specially equipped to perform forbidden planet assessments, had been maintaining a safe orbit around Kepler 442c for the past 3 standard cycles. The ship bristled with biometric scanners, ACS analysis equipment, and nervous crew members who seemed perpetually on edge. "I'm getting some conflicting readings," Vexi, the senior survey technician, reported, frowning at her display. Her 6-fingered hands moved across the console with practiced precision, despite the slight tremor of apprehension. "The surface data doesn't match our preliminary scans." "Perhaps it's just a calibration error," suggested BX Sky, the junior technician, who was attempting to service one of the secondary sensor arrays. His inexperience often led to awkward situations, but his good intentions were never in question. "Run a full diagnostic," ordered the security officer, "either FTH Chi or Kaftai." No one was quite sure which was the correct pronunciation, and the officer never bothered to correct anyone. Like most security personnel on survey vessels, he displayed a constant state of barely contained panic. The galactic hegemony prided itself on its meticulous paperwork, committees, and processes. Any potential threat required evaluation by a minimum of 43 specialists before action could be taken. The ACS itself was a marvel of bureaucratic achievement, a 10-level classification system with appendices, regulations, and emergency protocols that filled entire databanks. "Something's definitely down there," Vexi insisted, recalibrating her instruments. "The primary signature matches a Vorex, ACS classification 8.7. But there's another reading that's impossible." "Impossible how?" asked the emergency medical technician, who was already preparing psychological support equipment. Mental health interventions were common on survey missions. "It's registering as background level, almost undetectable, but it's clearly there, interacting with the Vorex signature." The ship's AI system began processing the data, only to experience what could only be described as a mechanical form of nausea. "The analysis algorithms are rejecting the input parameters," BX Sky reported, watching as error messages cascaded across his screen. "It's like the system is crying." After several hours of debate, recalibration, and what amounted to ritualistic pleading with the ship's stubborn AI, a decision was made to send a small away team to investigate. The choice wasn't made lightly. Vorex creatures were ACS 8.7 for good reason. Their crystalline carapace armor could deflect most energy weapons, and their acidic blood was known to eat through standard-issue protection gear in seconds. The landing party consisted of Vexi, who led with a portable scanner, the 2 security officers, who were barely holding back tears inside their armor, and the EMT, clutching a medical kit as if it were a religious artifact, capable of warding off evil. The moon's surface was a stark landscape of bioluminescent low grass and ancient forest bathed in the dim blue-violet light of Kepler 442c. The atmosphere was thin, but breathable, creating an eerie silence that only heightened the team's anxiety. "The Vorex signature is just beyond that ridge," Vexi whispered, though there was no logical reason to lower her voice. Something about the place demanded reverence, or perhaps it was just fear. As they crested the small hill, the scanner in Vexi's hand began to vibrate violently. "It's here! The Vorex was right here." The scene before them defied all rational explanation, according to hegemony standards. A massive vorax, 12 feet long with its once pristine carapace crystal armor, now shattered, lay sprawled across the glowing grass. Its acidic blood had created bizarre patterns as it slowly etched into the ground. The creature was unquestionably dead. But more shocking was the figure sleeping peacefully beside it. A human female, wrapped in a simple sleeping bag with a jacket bunched up as a makeshift pillow, was breathing slowly and evenly. She had no visible weapons, no specialized survival gear, nothing that would explain how she had managed to defeat one of the galaxy's most feared predators. The security officer's panic reached new heights. "Should we call for medical backup to see if she has some kind of neurological issue?" one whispered to the other. Fear and curiosity battling for dominance. Vexi approached cautiously. Scanner extended. The device continued to malfunction, unable to properly categorize the sleeping human. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. "According to ACS protocols, we should maintain distance and file an immediate report. But what?" the EMT asked, hanging back. "But should we rescue her or isolate her for more data points?" Vexi's scientific curiosity was fighting against her training. The regulation manual had no chapter covering apex predator defeated by sleeping alien. As they stood debating their next move, the woman stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, taking in the strange gathering of aliens staring down at her. She sat up, stretching casually as if waking up next to a dead monster was an everyday occurrence. "Hi there," she said, looking around at the survey team. "Any chance you know where I could get some coffee around here?" The security officers tightened their grip on their weapons. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" one of them demanded, voice cracking with tension. "That creature is an ACS Class 8.7 threat." The woman glanced at the dead vorax, then placed a finger thoughtfully to her lips. "Yeah, that's right. It tried to eat me, so I smacked it around a bit and then went back to sleep." Her casual tone sent the EMT into a fainting spell. Vexi had to step forward, trying to maintain some semblance of protocol. "We'll need to take you aboard our ship for questioning," she said, attempting to sound authoritative despite her bewilderment. The woman shrugged, packing up her sleeping bag with unhurried movements. "Sure, I guess. But seriously, about that coffee?" Aboard the Prudent Inquiry, the initial interview took place in a room hastily converted for the purpose. Vexi and BX Sky sat behind a primitive bureaucratic desk, piled high with datapads and forms. Recording equipment had been activated, and the questioning began in earnest. "What weapon did you use?" Vexi asked, stylus poised above a classification form. "How did you identify its weak points?" BX Sky added. "Do you plan to continue killing and then sleeping?" one of the security officers interjected from the corner, where they were monitoring the proceedings. The woman answered each question with the same baffling calm. "I used leverage and a basic understanding of anatomy. Nothing special. I just want some coffee." Her straightforward responses created internal conflict among the survey team. Was she being evasive, or were they simply overthinking the situation? As the interview continued, data about the Human Kills Class 8.7 incident was transmitted back to Hegemony Central Command. The response was immediate and unprecedented. The Military Council convened an emergency session, summoning experts to assess: is there a secret army behind this human? Philosophers began debating the unconscious violence theory. Can an individual terminate an apex being without hesitation? Religious groups split into factions. Some viewed her as a divine test, order of peaceful transcendence, while others proclaimed her a silent guardian, church of cosmic harmony. Representatives from the Zephyrian Empire, a crystalline species, theorized that she was a being who emits destructive frequency waves, a misinterpretation based on their sound-oriented culture. The Empathic Collective issued a statement. We suffer because the human can kill without emotional disturbance. Dr. Falant Tarnas from the Hegemony Research Division requested emergency funding to study human leverage mechanics, a problem that left the ACS speechless. Within days, the simple discovery had escalated into a galaxy-wide phenomenon. Various factions began staking claims to the human woman. The military council wanted to detain her for weapons research purposes, classifying her as a potential biological weapon. The Ethics and Philosophy Consortium argued she represented evidence of conflict between reason and instinct, and in the name of preserving truth, called for her retention as a philosophical discussion subject. Religious groups fought over whether to worship or test her faith. The Merchant Guild expressed concerns about adjusting insurance rates due to the emergence of the human class threat. Throughout these escalating debates, the woman would simply nod during each emergency meeting, occasionally remarking that meetings waste time and requesting to return to Earth soon because her visa card is about to expire. As the controversy grew, the woman began experiencing an internal identity crisis. Initially, she wondered, could the truth about me killing the Vorax have such a massive impact? She challenged her self-perception. I'm just an ordinary person, but now the whole galaxy fears me. Am I really that frightening? She was evolving from someone who only cared about coffee and camping trips to recognizing herself as the target of numerous species. She gradually learned to navigate these complications with patience, developing diplomatic skills and understanding political networks, aspects of life she had never encountered before. When she attempted a second camping expedition with an escort, the Hegemony security system surrounded her with the warning, "Do not leave the 10-kilometer radius." Despite the polite encirclement, any sign of conflict, such as encountering a native long-toothed tiger, would trigger a Class 9 alert, causing the fleet to launch warning flares. The entire situation reached a breaking point when the largest galactic hegemony conference in history was convened. Representatives of 17 species, each with their unique colors and sizes, gathered from 17 star systems. They assembled at Kepler 442c, constructing a mobile mega-conference hall around the old space station. Their common goal: to determine how to handle the human, primitive weapon, or biological weapon. Admiral Keth Boren, representing the military council, presented maps and diagrams. If humans can destroy a Vorax barehanded, we'll need countless medical supplies to counter them. We must examine all human soldiers. Professor Yathandro from the Philosophy Consortium advocated, humans are creating an ethical crisis. We no longer control violence, as they consider Apex being elimination trivial. The Empathic Collective representative pleaded, "Don't use her as an experiment. We are pained by the thought that violence could reach such normalcy." The Church of Cosmic Harmony delegation declared, "She is the embodiment of cosmic music, worthy of worship." The Merchant Guild representative worried aloud, "We must recalculate our insurance. Which goods can remain safe if humans exist?" In the midst of this heated debate, the woman herself appeared. She walked into the conference hall like an ordinary citizen entering a grand galactic assembly. She wore only simple camping attire, holding a coffee cup, a small reminder of her modest cultural influence. Her statement stunned the assembly. "Look, I was sleeping there. The Vorax tried to bite me. I defended myself and went back to sleep. I don't understand why everyone is making such a big deal about this." She questioned each delegate. "Have you ever slept beside the carcass of a dangerous animal? What do you want me to do now?" At the height of her internal conflict, she wondered, maybe this was a mistake, camping freely. Yet, she maintained her resolute demeanor. "I just want to go home, get dental work done, and pay my employees. I don't want to do anything grandiose." The image of her holding a coffee cup in the middle of the Galactic Hegemony Cathedral symbolized simplicity, contrasting with the enormous bureaucratic machine. The conference hall lights reflecting off her camping outfit represented natural living, illuminating bureaucratic existence. The emotional climax came when a military delegate demanded she remain. "Are you listening to us? This isn't a campground." Her decisive action was to declare, "If you don't give me freedom, I'll cancel my insurance," preventing all ships from moving, both humorous and a clever taunt. The appearance of the Galactic Insurance Regulatory Board marked the beginning of the resolution. The conflict between the Merchant Guild and military had escalated to the point of risking interstellar insurance shortage. Q. Morrell, an insurance investigator, appeared with a calm demeanor. "I handle all complex contracts, including cross-universe versions." Q. Morrell proposed a middle ground solution, creating a galactic protected entity category. The woman would receive diplomatic immunity, freedom of movement, lifetime insurance, alongside military escort splendor. In exchange, she only needed to sign a contract. 1. Occasionally appear at ceremonies, with no commitments regarding violence. 2. Provide practical advice, simple explanations like how she killed the Vorex. 3. Existence reports, quarterly. 1 sentence each time. Still alive? Haven't assaulted anyone. Coffee remains scarce. Representatives from various factions accepted, or reluctantly agreed. Military. At least we know she's not an emergency target. Philosophy. You can help us study the nature of violence. Religion. We're assured you won't convert us into weapons. The woman signed, only grumbling. "I have a dental appointment in 6 months. Don't bother me." Tensions eased across the galaxy. Aboard the Prudent Inquiry, crew members sighed with relief, noting, "Contract complete. No need to file additional emergency reports." Various factions downgraded their concerns. The military council shifted to researching human normalization. Philosophers changed their topic to "She glowed at low frequency, humans and folk art." Religious groups closed their meeting with, "Thank you for not killing our children this morning." The protagonist evolved from knowing nothing to understanding the basics of the hegemony. She learned to sign contracts and adjust her camping itinerary according to security requirements. She began keeping an interstellar survival journal. "This month, species cheered me like a celebrity 3 times, screamed because I killed a native rubber fox 3 times." Her internal conflict subsided. She accepted living with the title Supreme Being, but maintained her simple nature, continuing to care for her cat at home, remembering to send money to her mother. In the aftermath, the woman became a distinguished guest throughout the galaxy. Record-breaking camping. Each camping trip was escorted by 5 to 10 battleships, though she just wanted to find a quiet forest with coffee. Laudatory articles appeared. She killed a predator, then slept on, a breakthrough for violence research. The galaxy embraced her camping artistry. Sci-Fi Cam Reality shows broadcast her native hunting expeditions live, attracting billions of viewers. Vexy and BX Sky became her administrative advisors, frequently asking, "Is the coffee good yet?" Hugh Morrell recognized her as the most successful cosmic insurance case. All risks resolved through a simple agreement. Philosophy and religion representatives moved on to new topics. They still maintained her image as a foundation of folk philosophy for dissertations. The woman continued camping on a new planet, coffee cup in hand, a scene completely opposite to the bureaucratic universe. Dawn, breaking over Kepler 442c, reflected off the rotting Vorex armor, a symbol of the death of fear. As Earth media reported, portraying her as the cosmic camping goddess, speculation arose whether the tax office would use her as a special tax model. Before the story concluded, she discovered that coffee meeting the standards of 17-star species still couldn't match the simple Robusta beans from Earth, making the entire galaxy laugh. The moral of the story emerged clearly. 1. Simplicity sometimes prevails. Minimalism, applying leverage, can defeat overly complex strategies. 2. When people panic excessively, They gradually create bigger problems. Too many councils, subcommittees, and reports sometimes prove useless. 3. The value of individual freedom and ordinary dignity. No matter how vast the universe, everyone needs moments to stop and smell the roses, like camping and drinking coffee. The prudent inquiry had been orbiting Kepler 442c for exactly 73 standard hours when Vexi first noticed the anomaly. The senior survey technician had been monitoring the biometric scanners as part of the routine sweep of Sector 847 Zeta's third moon, a thankless task that typically revealed nothing but indigenous life forms too primitive to warrant hegemony attention. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting the calibration knobs with practiced precision. The readout flickered, stabilized, and continued displaying the impossible: a Class 8.7 entity, a Vorex, in proximity to something the system couldn't properly classify. BX Sky, hovering nearby as junior technicians were prone to do, peered over her shoulder. "Perhaps it's a sensor malfunction? I could run a diagnostic." "I've already run 3, Vexi cut him off, her 6-fingered hands dancing across the control panel. "The Vorex signature is clear, but this other reading, it's almost like background radiation, yet the pattern suggests sentience." The ship's AI attempted to process the conflicting data, only to crash spectacularly, its status lights blinking in what the crew would later describe as mechanical weeping. Security Officer Kavtai, or was it FTH Kai, appeared at the doorway, weapon already drawn despite being inside the safety of the prudent inquiry. "What's the situation? The emergency protocol's activated automatically." "We've detected a Vorex on the surface," Vexi explained. "But there's something else there too. Something the ACS can't categorize." The security officer's eyes widened to the point where they threatened to escape his skull entirely. "A Vorex? Those are Class 8.7. They can disembowel 43 specialists before anyone can file the proper incident report." "I'm aware of the classification," Vexi replied calmly, though her inner appendages trembled slightly. "That's why we need to alert the captain. This warrants further investigation." 3 hours, 17 approval forms, and 1 minor nervous breakdown later, the away team assembled in the shuttle bay. Captain Norid, a Tethkari of distinguished service records and distinguished anxiety disorders, addressed them with all the enthusiasm of someone reading their own obituary. "Remember, this is strictly observational," he emphasized, pacing the small platform. "No engagement, no samples, no heroics. If the situation deteriorates, you will evacuate immediately, and we will implement Protocol 27B, strategic withdrawal disguised as scientific caution." The team, consisting of Vexi, the 2 security officers, who had insisted on both attending, as if doubling the panic would somehow improve the situation, and the ship's EMT, nodded solemnly. Each carried standard survey equipment, though the security officers had supplemented theirs with enough weaponry to destabilize a small moon's orbit. The descent to the surface was mercifully uneventful, though the EMT spent most of it administering anti-anxiety medication to the security detail. By the time they touched down in a small clearing surrounded by bioluminescent vegetation, everyone had achieved a state of focused terror, the optimal condition for hegemony employees facing the unknown. "The signal is coming from just beyond that ridge," Vexi reported, consulting her handheld scanner. "About 300 meters northwest." They proceeded with caution, the security officers scanning the surroundings like nervous prey animals. The moon's atmosphere was thin but breathable, creating an eerie silence broken only by the soft hum of their equipment and the occasional whimper from the EMT. The landscape was hauntingly beautiful. Low, glowing grass that rippled in the light breeze, twisted trees with bark that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the distant star. Under different circumstances, it might have been considered a prime tourist destination. Under current circumstances, it felt like walking through the prelude to a tragedy. As they crested the ridge, The scanner in Vexy's hand began to vibrate violently, almost leaping from her grasp. She stabilized it, checked the readings, and froze. "It's here," she whispered. "The Vorex is right." She didn't finish the sentence. There was no need. The scene before them rendered words temporarily irrelevant. A massive Vorex, easily 12 feet long from its crystalline head to its barbed tail, lay sprawled across the glowing grass. Its legendary carapace armor, capable of deflecting military-grade weapons, was shattered in multiple places. Acidic blood had pooled beneath it, creating intricate, corroded patterns in the soil. The creature was unmistakably, irreversibly dead. But that wasn't what had stolen their collective breath. Beside the fallen apex predator, curled in a simple sleeping bag with what appeared to be a bundled jacket as a pillow, was a human female. She was sleeping peacefully, her chest rising and falling in the slow rhythm of deep slumber, apparently undisturbed by either the nearby corpse or the newly arrived survey team. Did she? The EMT stammered, unable to complete the thought. "Impossible," one security officer whispered, while the other simply began to pray softly in their native language. Vexy approached cautiously. Scanner extended. The device continued to malfunction, unable to properly categorize the sleeping human. According to all hegemony knowledge, humans were classified as ACS 3.2, intelligent, but largely harmless without technology. Nothing in their physiology suggested they could defeat a Vorex, especially without weapons. "The regulations state we should maintain distance and file an immediate report," Vexy said softly. "But I'm not sure that covers this particular scenario." "Is she injured?" the EMT asked, medical training briefly overriding fear. "Should we administer emergency care?" "She appears to be simply sleeping," Vexy replied, bewildered. "No visible injuries. No signs of distress." "Maybe it's a trap," one security officer suggested, voice cracking. "Maybe she's luring us in." "By pretending to sleep next to a dead Class 8.7 predator," Vexy countered. "That seems unnecessarily elaborate." As they debated their next move in urgent whispers, the woman stirred. The away team collectively stepped back, weapons raised, in the case of the security officers, or medical scanners extended, in the case of the EMT. The woman sat up slowly, blinking away sleep. She looked first at the dead Vorex beside her, then at the assembled aliens staring at her with expressions ranging from fascination to terror. She yawned, stretched, and offered a casual wave. "Morning," she said, though it was technically mid-afternoon by local standards. "Any chance you folks know where I could get some coffee around here?" The EMT promptly fainted. One security officer caught them, while the other tightened his grip on his weapon. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" the conscious security officer demanded, voice oscillating between outrage and awe. "That creature is an ACS Class 8.7 threat." The woman glanced at the dead Vorex, then shrugged. "Yeah, it tried to eat me last night, so I gave it a few good whacks, and then went back to sleep." She said this with the same casual tone someone might use to describe swatting a mosquito. Vexy, attempting to maintain some semblance of protocol despite the circumstances, stepped forward. "We'll need to take you aboard our ship for questioning. This is unprecedented." "Sure," the woman agreed, beginning to pack up her sleeping bag with unhurried movements. "But seriously, I haven't had coffee in 3 days, and it's becoming a problem." The return journey to the prudent inquiry was tense. The woman, who introduced herself simply as a human from Earth, seemed entirely untroubled by the situation. She asked casual questions about the ship, commented on the cool bioluminescent grass, and repeatedly inquired about coffee facilities. By the time they docked, the entire ship was on high alert. Captain Norrid had filed 17 preliminary reports, each contradicting the last as new information trickled in. The crew had divided into factions, those who believed the human must be some kind of super soldier, and therefore dangerous. Those who thought she might be the advanced scout for an invasion, and therefore dangerous. And those who suspected she was simply a statistical anomaly, and therefore dangerous in an abstract, universe-questioning way. The initial interview took place in a hastily converted storage room, the most secure location available that wasn't currently filled with sensitive equipment. Vexy and Beak Sky sat behind a makeshift desk piled with datapads and forms. The security officers positioned themselves at strategic points around the room, while the EMT, having recovered from their fainting spell, monitored the human's vital signs from a safe distance. "Let's start with the basics," Vexy began, activating the recording equipment. "How did you kill the Vorax?" The woman, now sipping a steaming beverage that the ship's synthesizer had produced after 3 attempts to approximate coffee, considered the question. "Well, it attacked me while I was setting up camp. I used leverage, basically. Hit it in the joint sections where the plates connect. You know, basic anatomy. Those crystal armor segments may be tough, but the connective tissue between them isn't." "And you knew this how?" BX Sky asked, taking furious notes. "I didn't know," she replied, making air quotes. "I just figured anything with a body has weak points. It's pretty universal." "Did you use any weapons?" one security officer interjected. "Nope, just hands, feet, and a convenient rock for the final blow." "And this didn't trouble you?" the EMT asked hesitantly. The woman raised an eyebrow. "It was trying to eat me. Self-defense isn't complicated where I come from." "And where exactly is that?" Vexy asked. "Earth. I'm on a sort of interstellar camping trip, trying to find some peace and quiet, experience new worlds. You know, vacation stuff." The questioning continued for hours, with the woman providing straightforward answers that somehow only deepened the mystery. She had no special training, no advanced weapons, no secret agenda, just a desire to explore space, camp under alien skies, and find a decent cup of coffee. Meanwhile, her existence was causing a crisis that extended far beyond the prudent inquiry. The initial reports had been transmitted to Hegemony Central Command, and the response was immediate and unprecedented. The Military Council convened an emergency session, summoning specialists from 17 systems to assess the potential threat. "Is this human an isolated anomaly, or are there more like her?" demanded Admiral Kethbaran, pounding his fist on the ornate council table. "Do they have an army of these beings? Are they planning an invasion using their bare hands?" The Philosophical Consortium declared an ethical emergency. "This challenges our entire understanding of violence," Professor Yathandro announced to a packed auditorium. "If a being can terminate an apex predator without hesitation or specialized tools, what does this say about the nature of consciousness itself?" Religious groups across the hegemony split into factions. The Order of Peaceful Transcendence declared the human a divine test, while the Church of Cosmic Harmony proclaimed her a silent guardian sent to protect the innocent. Representatives from the Zephyrian Empire, a crystalline species with limited understanding of mammalian biology, theorized that the human emitted destructive frequency waves that shattered the Vorax's armor from within, a misinterpretation based on their sound-oriented culture. The Empathic Collective issued a public statement expressing distress. "We suffer collectively at the thought that any being could end another's existence without emotional disturbance. This human represents a wound in the psychic fabric of the galaxy." Dr. Phalant Tarnas from the Hegemony Research Division submitted an emergency funding request to study human leverage mechanics and applied force multiplication, a field that had previously been considered too primitive to warrant scientific attention. As news spread, the situation escalated from a scientific curiosity to a galaxy-wide political crisis. Various factions began staking claims to the human woman. The Military Council classified her as a potential biological weapon and demanded she be detained for comprehensive study and potential defensive applications. The Ethics and Philosophy Consortium argued she represented evidence of fundamental conflict between reason and instinct, and should be retained as a subject for philosophical discourse in the name of preserving universal truth. Religious groups fought over whether she should be worshipped as a divine messenger or tested to prove her faith. The Merchant Guild expressed grave concerns about insurance rates across the galaxy. If humans can casually eliminate Class 8.7 threats, we must reassess all transportation risks and premium structures. Throughout these escalating debates, the woman remained aboard the Prudent Inquiry, participating in increasingly bizarre interviews and examinations. Her responses to the mounting galactic panic were consistently pragmatic. She attended each emergency meeting with a polite nod, occasionally remarking that all these meetings seem like a waste of time, and frequently requesting to return to Earth because her credit card is probably maxed out by now. As weeks passed, the woman began experiencing her own internal crisis. Initially, she had viewed the situation as a simple misunderstanding that would soon be resolved. Now, faced with the reality that her casual act of self-defense had triggered galaxy-wide panic, she found herself questioning her place in the universe. "I'm just an ordinary person," she confided to Vexy during a rare moment of privacy. "I run a small business back on Earth, take care of my cat, send money to my mom every month. Nothing special. But now an entire galaxy is afraid of me. Am I really that frightening?" She was evolving from someone whose primary concerns had been finding good coffee and scenic camping spots to recognizing herself as the focal point of interspecies politics. Gradually, she learned to navigate these complications, developing diplomatic skills and understanding political networks, aspects of life she had never encountered on Earth. When she expressed a desire to continue her camping trip, the hegemony reluctantly agreed, with conditions. A security detail of 17 officers would accompany her at all times, maintaining what they called a protective perimeter, but what amounted to constant surveillance. Her second camping expedition on Kepler 442c's moon became a surreal experience. Hegemony security systems surrounded her campsite with invisible barriers and monitoring equipment, issuing periodic warnings. "Please remain within the designated 10-kilometer radius for your safety and the safety of others." Despite the ostensibly polite, protective escort, any sign of potential conflict, such as a curious long-toothed tiger-like creature approaching the camp, would trigger an immediate Class 9 alert, causing the orbiting fleet to launch warning flares and deploy additional security personnel. "I just wanted to take some pictures," the woman complained, after her third attempt to approach a particularly beautiful waterfall was thwarted by panicking security officers. "How am I supposed to enjoy nature with a small army following me everywhere?" "The hegemony is responsible for your safety," explained the security team leader, who had been specially selected for the mission based on their slightly below-average anxiety levels, "and the safety of all other life forms that might encounter you. I'm not going to hurt anyone unless they try to eat me first," she pointed out reasonably. "That seems like a fair policy." The security officer shuddered. "Your definition of fair caused 17 emergency committee meetings and the first galaxy-wide insurance crisis in 3 centuries. As tensions increased and more factions demanded access to the human, the galactic hegemony took unprecedented action. They convened the largest interspecies conference in recorded history. Representatives of 17 major species gathered from across the galaxy, assembling at a hastily constructed conference facility in orbit around Kepler 442c. The Grand Hall, a marvel of emergency engineering, was designed to accommodate beings ranging from the microscopic quantum consciousness collective to the massive gravitational entities of Sirius Prime. Translation systems hummed constantly, converting 17 different communication methods into a comprehensible format for all attendees. The conference's stated purpose was clear and unsettling: to determine the appropriate classification, handling protocols, and jurisdiction regarding the human anomaly, primitive weapon or biological weapon. Admiral Keth Boren, representing the Military Council, presented holographic maps and strategic assessments. If humans possess the natural ability to neutralize Class 8.7 threats using only their bare hands, we must immediately revise all defense protocols. Every human in the galaxy must be examined, categorized, and potentially restricted. Professor Yathandro from the Philosophy Consortium offered a different perspective. This human represents an ethical crisis of unprecedented proportions. Her ability to engage in lethal violence without apparent moral distress challenges our fundamental understanding of sentient behavior. She must be studied in a controlled environment for the preservation of ethical knowledge. The Empathic Collective's representative, a being composed primarily of neural tissue, trembled visibly as they addressed the assembly. "We implore you not to treat this being as merely an experiment or weapon. The casual nature of her violence causes ripples of distress throughout the empathic field. We must understand, not exploit." Religious delegates competed for attention, with the Church of Cosmic Harmony proclaiming, "She is clearly the embodiment of universal balance, capable of both creation and destruction without distinction. She must be venerated, not contained." The Merchant Guild, perhaps most practically, raised concerns about economic stability. "We must recalculate all insurance models immediately. Which goods, ships, or colonies can remain viable if humans can simply—" The representative gestured vaguely. "Punch apex predators to death on a whim?" As the debate reached fever pitch, with 17 species talking over each other in increasingly panicked tones, the doors to the conference hall slid open. The cacophony died instantly as the subject of their deliberations walked calmly into the room. The woman, dressed in her simple camping attire and holding a freshly synthesized cup of coffee, surveyed the assembly with mild interest. Unlike the elaborate formal wear or environmental suits worn by the delegates, her practical clothing stood in stark contrast to the grandeur of the surroundings. "I heard you were all talking about me," she said into the silence. "Thought I might save you some time by showing up in person." Admiral Boren recovered first. "This is a closed security conference. How did you bypass the protocols?" She shrugged. "I told the guards I was bringing coffee for the delegates, and they let me through. People generally don't question someone carrying beverages." She took a sip from her cup. "Now, can someone explain why my camping trip has turned into an interplanetary incident?" Professor Yathandro leaned forward, compound eyes gleaming with academic interest. "You terminated a Class 8.7 apex predator with your bare hands, and then continued sleeping beside its corpse, as if nothing significant had occurred. This behavior pattern is unprecedented and potentially indicates a neurological or philosophical anomaly." The woman looked genuinely puzzled. "Look, I was sleeping. The Vorex tried to eat me. I defended myself, and then I went back to sleep because I was tired. I don't understand why everyone's making such a big deal about this." She gestured around the Grand Assembly. "Have none of you ever had to deal with dangerous wildlife? What exactly do you want from me?" The question hung in the air, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. A galaxy-spanning civilization thrown into chaos by one woman's camping trip. In the silence, she felt a moment of doubt. Perhaps this had been a mistake, venturing alone into space, camping on unknown worlds. She had never intended to become the center of a galactic crisis. She just wanted to experience new landscapes, find interesting coffee variants, and take some memorable photos. But outwardly, she maintained her composure. "I just want to go home eventually. I have a dental appointment in a few months, employees to pay, a cat to feed. I'm not interested in becoming some kind of galactic superweapon or philosophical case study." The image of her standing there, a simple human holding a coffee cup in the middle of the most powerful assembly in the known universe, became instantly iconic. The conference hall's elaborate lighting reflected off her practical camping outfit, creating a visual metaphor that would be analyzed by hegemony artists for generations. Simplicity, illuminating complexity. Natural pragmatism confronting bureaucratic excess. Admiral Boren, visibly frustrated, rose from his seat. This isn't a matter of what you want. The security of the entire hegemony is at stake. You cannot simply wander the galaxy killing apex predators and expect no consequences. The woman took another sip of her coffee. I didn't come here looking for trouble, but if you try to detain me against my will, I'll be forced to cancel my travel insurance policy. The statement, delivered casually, sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Merchant Guild representative nearly fell from their elevated platform. You wouldn't, they gasped. I would, she confirmed. And from what I understand about your regulations, that would mean every ship I've traveled on would be retroactively non-compliant, which would trigger an insurance review of the entire sector, which would freeze all commercial travel until resolved. The conference erupted into chaos. The revelation that this seemingly simple human understood enough about hegemony bureaucracy to identify its most vulnerable point was perhaps more terrifying than her ability to kill a Vorax. As delegates shouted over each other, a new figure entered the hall, tall, slender, and dressed in the distinctive gray uniform of the Galactic Insurance Regulatory Board. They moved with the calm confidence of someone who dealt with catastrophes on a daily basis. Perhaps I can offer assistance, they announced, voice cutting through the din. I am Q Morell, Senior Adjustment Specialist. I handle complex contracts, including cross-jurisdictional disputes. The appearance of an insurance regulator at a security conference would normally have been considered inappropriate. But given the nature of the human's threat, Q Morell was immediately granted speaking privileges. The conflict between security concerns and commercial regulations has reached a critical point, Q Morell observed, reviewing data on a sleek handheld device. However, there is precedent for a compromise solution. The assembly fell silent, desperate for any resolution that would prevent both a security crisis and an insurance meltdown. I propose the creation of a new classification, Galactic Protected Entity. Q Morell continued. This would grant the human diplomatic immunity, freedom of movement, and comprehensive coverage under a specialized insurance policy. And in exchange, Admiral Boran asked suspiciously. In exchange, she would agree to 3 simple conditions, Q Morell explained, turning to the woman. First, occasional ceremonial appearances at hegemony functions, purely symbolic, no combat demonstrations required. Second, consultation on practical matters related to your unique problem-solving approach. And third, quarterly confirmation of your continued existence and non-aggressive status. The woman considered this. So, basically, I show up to some parties, explain how leverage works if anyone asks, and send a message every few months saying I'm still alive and haven't punched any more monsters? Precisely, Q Morell confirmed. A simple contract that satisfies all parties. Representatives from the various factions exchanged glances, finding the solution unexpectedly reasonable. At least we would know her whereabouts, Admiral Boran conceded. She could contribute to our understanding of instinctual problem-solving, Professor Yathandro noted. Our followers would be reassured that she isn't converting others to her methods. The religious delegates agreed. The woman shrugged. I can live with that, as long as I'm free to continue my travels. And I really do need to be back on Earth in 6 months for that dental appointment. The contract was drafted, reviewed by 17 legal teams, and signed within hours, a speed unprecedented in hegemony history. As the woman applied her signature to the final document, a palpable sense of relief spread throughout the conference hall. Aboard the Prudent Inquiry, the crew celebrated the resolution with a small gathering in the observation lounge. Contract complete. No additional emergency reports required, Vexy announced, raising a glass of synthesized celebratory beverage. BX Sky, who had been maintaining the ship's communication systems through the crisis, collapsed into a chair. "I never thought I'd see the day when the hegemony created an entirely new classification, just for one being." "She earned it," Vexi replied. Not many could send 17 bureaucracies into simultaneous meltdown while asking for coffee. The aftermath of what became known as the Kepler incident rippled throughout the galaxy. The Military Council established a new research division focused on human normalization techniques, rather than weapons applications. The Philosophy Consortium published a best-selling treatise titled "She Glowed at Low Frequency: Humans and the Art of Pragmatic Existence." Religious groups gradually shifted their focus to less threatening cosmic mysteries. As for the woman herself, she embraced her new status with pragmatic acceptance. She learned to navigate hegemony protocols, adjusted her travel plans to accommodate security requirements, and kept her end of the bargain with minimal complaint. Her Interstellar Survival Journal became a private record of her unique experiences. Month 3 as a galactic protected entity was cheered like a celebrity on Proxima Station when recognized. Caused a minor panic on Rigel Prime after swatting a rubber-like fox creature that turned out to be someone's pet. Coffee remains disappointing throughout the quadrant. Her internal conflict gradually subsided as she accepted her unusual place in the universe. She might be classified as a supreme being in hegemony records, but she remained fundamentally unchanged, still caring for her cat when home on Earth, still sending money to her mother, still searching for the perfect cup of coffee across 17 star systems. In time, she became something of a distinguished guest throughout the galaxy. Her camping expeditions, now escorted by a modest fleet of 5 to 10 battleships instead of 17, became legendary. She maintained her simple goal of finding quiet forests and scenic vistas, though the definition of quiet had to be adjusted to account for the constant hum of security scanners. Scientific journals published articles with titles like "The Kepler Anomaly: Instinctual Predator Response as Revolutionary Self-Defense Methodology," and "She Killed a Vorax, Then Slept Beside It: Implications for Violence Research." The entertainment industry embraced her as well. Cosmic Camper became a popular reality program, broadcasting her expeditions to billions of viewers across the hegemony. Audiences were particularly fascinated by her matter-of-fact approach to wilderness survival, though editors carefully censored any sequences involving potentially threatening wildlife. Vexi and BX Sky, having been present at the original discovery, leveraged their experience into prestigious positions as human cultural attachés. They frequently accompanied her on official functions, discreetly managing the bureaucratic details while she focused on more immediate concerns, primarily the ongoing quest for decent coffee. Q. Morrell cited the Human Classification Agreement as the most successful case in their long career. A perfect example of how appropriate insurance structures can resolve even the most complex interspecies conflicts. Philosophy and religion representatives eventually moved on to new topics of interest, though academic dissertations continue to reference her as a foundational example of pragmatic ethics in action. On her one-year anniversary as a galactic protected entity, the woman celebrated in her preferred fashion, camping alone, or as alone as one could be with a security perimeter, on a newly discovered moon, watching the sunrise with a cup of coffee in hand. The simple scene, a human enjoying nature, stood in stark contrast to the bureaucratic machinery that had been constructed around her existence. As dawn broke over the alien landscape, light reflected off a fragment of crystalline material half buried in the soil nearby, a piece of Vorax armor, weathered and dulled by time. Once a symbol of terror throughout the galaxy, now just another interesting rock on a beautiful morning. Earth media eventually caught wind of the story, portraying her as the cosmic camping goddess and speculating wildly about her adventures. Tabloids debated whether the Galactic Tax Authority would classify her as a special category entity for revenue purposes, while coffee companies competed to claim their blend was Spacefarer approved. Before returning to Earth at the conclusion of her extended journey, the woman made one final discovery that delighted her. Despite sampling coffee variants from 17 star systems, produced using technologies thousands of years more advanced than Earth's, nothing quite matched the simple pleasure of Robusta beans grown in volcanic soil back home. When she shared this observation during her final quarterly report, the hegemony representatives were initially confused, then amused by the irony. In the end, perhaps that was the most valuable lesson she had taught the galaxy. Complexity doesn't always improve on simplicity. Bureaucracy doesn't always enhance safety. And sometimes the most effective solution is also the most straightforward. As her ship prepared for the final jump to Earth, Admiral Boran, who had become something of a reluctant admirer, asked if she had any parting wisdom for the hegemony. She considered the question while sipping her coffee, imported from Earth at considerable expense. 3 things, she said finally. First, simplicity often works better than complexity. I killed that Vorex because I didn't overthink it. I just applied basic leverage and anatomical knowledge. Second, fear makes problems worse. Your 17 committees and 43 specialists didn't make anyone safer. They just created more paperwork and panic. And third, she added with a smile, never underestimate someone who can sleep peacefully next to the thing that just tried to kill them. That's true confidence. With that philosophical flourish, she returned to Earth, her legendary status secured throughout the galaxy, though on her home planet. She remained simply a woman who enjoyed camping, ran a small business, cared for her cat, and appreciated good coffee. The galactic hegemony, meanwhile, quietly revised the Apex classification system to include a new appendix on the practical application of leverage in crisis situations, lessons from the Kepler incident. It was, by hegemony standards, remarkably concise. As for Sector 847 Zeta, formerly known as the Forbidden Sector, it was reclassified as a potential tourism destination, with guided camping expeditions available by reservation only, and a strange new requirement that all visitors bring their own coffee.